Okay, what's up, guys? So today we're going to do a boot camp series, which is going to be we're just going to pick specific spots in the game tree, and we're only going to focus on the one spot. So I just filtered. This is just my river check raises only in the last couple months at the 200s Russian cash GG. So as you can see, it happened 110 times. Very high EV win rate spot. I'm definitely somebody who's over check raise bluffing. And before we get into some hands, there's a ton of nuance. I wanted to give you guys some general ideas. So the first one is that as a general rule, a river check raise bluff comes from hands that have enough showdown to check out of position and win sometimes, but then versus a bet can get a bunch of better hands to bet fold. The more capped that somebody is and the better your combo is from like a blocker perspective, is going to be the higher EV the spot. And I don't advise playing a balanced river check raising size or a balanced river check raising range and size versus everyone. Instead, I think that you can get a lot higher win rate if you have it more tailored. So, for example, versus a weak tight regular and fish, I would over check raise river bluff them when they are capped, and I would also use exploitative sizing on the check raise. So in this case, I would go bigger when I want them to fold and smaller when I want them to call because I view them as weak tight. And alternatively, versus the loose guys, I would use combos with better blockers, so I would not overdo it, and I would make sure to go for my larger sizing with value. So we're just going to go through a ton of hands and going to look for patterns and different data points and give you guys a better understanding of river check raises. So this one against a regular, 3-bet call. Flop, I'm going to split. My hand can check because it doesn't get many better hands. I mean, it gets no better hands to fold. Doesn't get that many worse hands to call. It can get called from some suited hands, obviously, but quite difficult to play the turn, and you definitely want a checking range. So I check. Turn, nothing to do. Can never bet, makes no sense. So have a clear check. When he bets large, I think that I have a very good calling hand. I have very often 10 outs, and I beat all of his bluffs. So all of his 6, 7, 7, 8, 10, 9, Queen 10, King 10, King Queen. So I definitely think that I have 30%. Also, this is no filter. I'm going to do just every time I've check raised. So it's going to be all value, all bluffs, just every spot. So we have an easy call. River, we have a clear check. When he goes polar on the turn, I don't think that it would be a bad strategy to have a leading range on this king because I'm going to be the only one with ace king and I'm going to have quite a bit of it. And if he's betting for the large sizing, let's say 8s, 9s, 10s, and jack X, it definitely could make sense to have a leading range on the river and put this hand in. But I decide that his range is more polar, so I want to make sure that he bluffs all of his like 10-9, etc. So I check, he goes half pot. Here, I think that any hand that is better than my hand would shove all in because it should. So I think that unblocking the king of clubs is really good here because he's always going to have king 10 of clubs, king queen of clubs, king 9 of clubs, and then he just could have like king queen of diamonds, king 10 of hearts or whatever, or not hearts, I have hearts, but you get the point. And the main idea was that I just thought that, he should shove any hand that beats mine. He should not bet half pot. So I go for the value shove and I end up cutting myself, but I think it's fine. Just kind of take a note. So raise call, flop check. Turn we have a check. This hand could bet. Like you're going to want to bet here. I would say the bottom would be something like ace 10 plus. But completely fine to check depending on how you view your opponent. He goes large. We have a clear call. We check. This is actually a very similar concept as the last hand. So he goes this sizing, 2/3. And here again, this is going to be a difference in the higher caliber players are going to be able to raise more thin for value. And the reason is on this river, his range should certainly have overbets in them because he's going to have the advantage in ace 5, ace 6, some pocket kings, ace queen, and ace jack from pre-flop. So he definitely should have an overbet range. And so I decided to attack his sizing, just saying that he's probably not going to have enough of the aces in the small sizing. And I don't think he should. Like, when he has ace jack or better here, he should overbet. So I decide to make a value raise with the 10 kicker. I think it's good against population for sure. And I would just fold versus shove. He calls with ace jack, so it's fine. Like, I think he's losing money against the ranges here because his hand should bet at least double pot on the river, and then I actually have a spot with a bunch of my hands in my range. He can still have this sizing on the river. Like, if he had a weaker ace, like ace 7, ace 8, he could definitely choose this sizing. But when he has ace jack here, he basically has the nuts. So I think against his range, ace 10 definitely has to raise. And he's just losing value when I have worse hands. So I'm happy with the raise here. Okay, let's talk about this one. Okay, so raise call. Flop, I go for small c-bet. So if I go for small c-bet here, I'm probably playing against recreational. These days, I'm mainly going big bet or check on this type of board. Against the small raise, I think he's going to have like a lot of one pair ace-x hands, like ace-8, ace-10, things like that. I'm going to call here, and I'm going to look to see if I can gain more information or sizing tells on a future street for me to start attacking. Don't think that my hand makes a great 3-bet. I have no blockers to anything. I would rather 3-bet bluff with a deuce or even jack 10, king jack. I guess jack 10 would be the better one because it blocks ace jack, ace 10. He doesn't have ace king, so having the king wouldn't help. Turn the nuts. Check. He checks back. And here we have a river check raise for value. And the reason why you want to check raise for value here is because when he raises the flop, he's saying he has an ace or a bluff. So on this river, some of his bluffs are going to be hands like 3-4 suited, 5-3 suited, things like that. And on this river, if I check, he's always going to reopen an ace with the action played as it was. And I'm also allowing him to reopen a bluff. So you want to check raise. One of the spots you want to check raise for value is when your hand is unblocking the betting range from your opponent, both for value and as a bluff. So we go for check. And like when he has a hand like 5-3 or 3-4, he's not calling anyway. So he bets. And here is kind of, there's no one rule in this situation. It's like a very complicated science or algorithm to know exactly in which spots to go what sizing. I would say that as a general rule, when you have the nuts, you want to try to play the biggest pot possible. Here, to be more specific in this situation, I say that I think in this spot, realistically, when he has a hand that he is going to call, like ace jack, ace 10, or he could have ace 6, I think that he's going to call a large sizing. Like, I don't think there's going to be a huge difference between if I check raise to 3x and I go 36, I think he would call basically all of those. But if I go all in, then I give myself a chance to, the times that he calls with any of his catchers and he doesn't believe me, I just make so much more. And just given the blocker effects of my hand and the fact that he could have ace 6 at 100% frequency, even offsuit, because it's blind on blind, he small raised the flop, I decided to go for max value here, and I went for the shove. And we'll talk about some other spots to kind of show you some distinctions on where I would go for like a smaller sizing, but as a general rule, when you have this type of hand which completely unblocks the calling range of any of the pairs, the large sizing is preferred, and you should not play balanced against 98% of the population, in the sense of, if I did have a bluff here, that doesn't mean that I need to go all in. I would try to go a sizing that is big enough that I think that I could get him to fold some of those catchers, so some of those like ace jack, ace 10 hands. So in this specific situation, I'd probably go like 102, something like that. So I'd save myself some money when I get called. He ends up calling ace 3, so it's good. Okay, raise call, flop, check call, check check. So here, again, check makes a lot of sense here because I'm blocking the calling range that he's going to have, which is going to be the 6, the top pair that bets the flop, and unblocking all of the bluffs because he's never going to bluff with an ace or a 6. And if he, like the way that the hand has played out, basically all of his 7s through kings are going to end up betting the turn. So yes, sometimes he might have a hand like pocket 4s or pocket 5s, which I would lose some value against, but then again, those hands might not even call. But if you look at the overall range, the time that he hits the ace on the river and he opens and then calls a check raise, and versus the times that he bluffs, is going to far outweigh me betting here and very occasionally getting called by like 4s or 5s. So he checks. And here versus small sizing, I don't remember what I did here. I would look at this spot and say, in general, I would probably lean towards all in. As a general rule, I'm going to do what my hand is worth unless I have a good read of how my opponent is playing. And when he reopens here for this small sizing, realistically, I think like the bottom of his value bet range is an ace anyway. So I probably see myself going all in here. Okay, so I went for small sizing. So I don't think that this is the best sizing. The only reason I would choose this would be that if I thought that this player was massively over-folding versus the river check raise. So it would have to be that he only has 50 big blinds, so he's definitely some kind of fish. It would have to be something like he is playing very tight pre-flop, and I have some post-flop read that he's a folder. That would be the only reason for me to choose this small sizing. I guess the other reason could be if he was very aggressive and I thought I could get an induce, but that's almost never in this situation. So I wouldn't say that this would be that type of spot. I wouldn't view it like that. This is sad when you get blocked into 3-bet. I guess he's saying he has like... Yeah, I don't even think I can fold here because I'm not even fully catching. Like it's not impossible he has ace 6 himself for this when I make the small check raise on the river and he does this not all in. He's mainly representing a better hand, but in this spot, I would much rather call ace 6 than even 5-4. So I'm going to call. Oh, I folded. Wow. Okay. Very interesting. So here I guess it's consistent with the read of why I went for the small sizing. I had to have thought that he is an extremely tight player and would overfold. This is very interesting. I'm surprised I folded here. Half pot, check, 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 1/3. raise, shove. Okay, so I gave him credit for being an extremely tight player and never bluffing. Oh, look at that. And he shows me aces. So, well played me. Good reads all the way through. So I folded, yeah, he had aces. Um, yeah, so that kind of shows you the difference of the different sizings I'm willing to choose for river check raise spots, where in the other one I went all in. This one, my hand is definitely worth all in, but the player that I was up against, I had him tagged for sure as a very tight player, and so I sized down, and then I was even able to fold against the raise. Would very very rarely fold that in that situation, so I must have had a strong read against that opponent. This hand I remember. This hand tilts me still to this day. Raise call against a regular, flop check check. Turn, your hand definitely wants to check. Really good hand to check raise bluff. Blocking 5-6, unblocking 9s and 10s. Check check. River, my hand could definitely block. I think check calling is fine, but I remember the reason I'm tilted about this hand isn't because I went for check raise. I think I have a really nice check raising hand. I think that the reason why this wants to check raise is I can get him to bet fold some Jack X, which I'll have sometimes, some pocket 9s, some pocket 10s, but I really dislike my sizing here. And I remember that I chose this sizing because I was running out of time and I knew I wanted to raise, and I had like 1 second left, so I just clicked this button, just thinking, I block everything. And this sizing is trying to get my opponent to even fold an 8. And in this situation, I think that that's not a good idea. Because from his perspective, it really depends on the caliber of player. Like, if you're sitting here with an 8 and you face this line, you're not happy about it. You lose, like, I have everything. You lose to 4s, 5-6, 7s, jacks, 10-9 suited. Most players never have a bluff here. So I don't think that the play in itself is terrible, but I didn't choose the right player for sure, because I remember he coming with Jack 9 of spades. So yeah, this is a good hand to show you that A, not all your check raise bluffs are going to work, that's for sure, and B, still kind of look at the type of combo that I'm choosing. So I can show down against a bunch of his ace highs, and I can get him to fold some better hands. Like, if you can imagine, he had, I mean, even this hand, it's for sure not just going to bet call every time, or have like every player just bet call this hand every time. And then 9s and 10s fold pure. So he could also, it's not impossible for him to have an overpair. Like, he's a regular trying to play more tricky, so he could have aces. But overall, I think that not the right guy to do this sizing to. I should have check raised to either a different sizing or just check called. Okay, against fish, raise call. I went for flop check, sure. Turn, I size up. His range is going to be pretty inelastic on this turn. Here's an important concept on the river again. So why is this a check? I'm blocking his call range. So his call range on the river is going to be either a king or he's going to have a flush. And so when I have a king, it's nice because his bluffing range is going to be all of the 10-9 type hands. I could have a hand like Jack 9. And the hands that he calls with on the river that are not a king, that are like a good flush, are very likely to bet himself. So we check, he bets. So this way we get value from his misdraws, or if he just turns something into a bluff, if he has a hand like 4-5 of spades, 7-6 of hearts, none of those hands would call a bet, but they're going to bluff fairly often, so I get a bet from them. And then anytime he has a decent diamond, he's going to bet, and I get the bet from him. Here, for me to go the small sizing here and not all in must have mean that I thought he was, again, I had a tag that he's very weak and tight. Normally this hand for sure wants to shove, because most recreationals in this spot are never folding the queen of diamonds. But the reason why I made this sizing, I just know myself, is in a spot that I'm going to have 0 bluffs, which would be this type of spot because he's uncapped. I size down with the logic of, if he calls anything, he's making a mistake against the range. Let's fine. Okay, raise call. Don't know if this is, I mean, I guess it's a reg betting quarter pot flop. I remember. So this is against a very sticky reg. So I decide to very clear river check hand. The hands that he's going to call the river with are very likely to reopen. We unblock all of his bluffing hands, 10-9, Queen 10, etc. And I just go for all of it. So really good idea here. He's going to have some ace jack. He's going to have some ace x. And you wouldn't want to do this with no history. Like with no history here, you're only going to get called by ace jack, which in fairness, that alone might just even make this just good. If he even only calls ace jack here, that still might make more money than if you check raised to, let's say, 20 blinds and got called by all of his ace x. But the main idea here is kind of seeing that it's important to have these sizings in your game, the large sizings, when you're tagged as an aggressive player to get max value when they have either hands that they want to call. Because some guys here, it's not inconceivable here where some guy would bet call here against me with like ace 5 suited, just thinking that I'm overdoing it. And I am overdoing it against a lot of guys, but if I'm playing my best, not against the guy who's going to overcall me. Okay, check, call against a reg. This hand just happened the other day. Check, we have a very easy call. Check. Here, I rolled this. This is against a good, like a reasonable reg. So I rolled this, and I said I was going to shove this. I think it was like 30% of the time or something like that. A really good hand to shove. It's not really good. It's pretty good hand to shove. The reason I say that is because I'm not representing as many full houses with this combo, because at least he would expect, and he would be correct, that my king 4 and my jack 4 are very likely to check raise the flop. So I'm representing more queen 4, which I would have every time, and I'm representing king x of high diamonds I would have flush. And I do think that this is still, like, this is the type of situation where, like, against a weak regular, this hand will print pure, because he's going to be betting the river with all of his 10-9, ace-10, all of his flushes, and most of them are only calling with either the ace-high flush, with some guys even fold that because they have no blocker, or the king-high flush, which is better, kind of blocking the full houses. And so I rolled it, went all in. He made a really bad call against my range called ace-10 of hearts, this is a terrible call. He blocks absolutely nothing. So when you see something like this, you should ask yourself without ego, how is his call in reality against your actual range? And here, his call in reality against my actual range is not going to be good, because I'm going to be shoving with like ace high flush, king high flush with a decent amount of king high flushes, and my only bluff here was going to be queen jack. Would I bluff anything else? King jack, I'm check raising flop. If I had a hand like ace jack offsuit with the ace of diamonds, if I do have that on if I continue the turn, I would bluff that. Ace queen offsuit with the ace of diamonds, I would also bluff that if I had that. He definitely wants to call though with, at least he wanted to have, like, it'd be better for him to call with ace 10 offsuit, ace of diamonds, than even like a baby flush. Or this is one of the worst hands he has to call with here. This blocks absolutely nothing. So when I see this, what goes into my head is I just start putting him into a different category of how often I want to river check raise him and with what combo. So you'll see as we go into other hands, I'll be taking some very aggressive river check raises against different players with wider hands, even without blockers and things like that. Whereas against this player, I wouldn't do that because he's overcalling. Okay. Raise, 3-bet call. Flop, when you flop the nut straight here, you just want to call. Turn, same idea. Especially, this is like a pretty clear sizing tell in my opinion here when he chooses 2/3. Like most guys, when they have the overpair here, they're betting like at least 22 blinds. So we have a clear call. If I didn't have spades, I would still just call. He's gonna have a lot of hands to draw dead. This one's not strategically interesting. I remember this hand. So bet small flop with all the backdoors. It's good. Turn check. Could go for a check raise with this combo, but I don't think I had any history with this player, so just decided to check call and take it from there on the river. River, he bets, and here I think he's going to have a ton of one pair of aces. I don't have many bluffs in this line because I've check called the turn. So here I think that this is a very reasonable bluff hand. My best bluffing hand would probably be something like King 6 of spades. Definitely blocking the river 6 would be quite nice, just blocking A6. But I think that the way that he's sized his hand, and with my blockers, blocking the 2 pair with the 9 is nice. The 5 of diamonds is kind of whatever. I don't think he's representing 5-3 anyway. Decide with no history to go for it, and here, just because I want to fold, and the type of hand that I think he's representing, which is a 1 pair, I want to give that the most amount of problems, so all in. He ends up bet calling, and you're going to see here, I'm going to show you guys a bunch of hands, like sometimes they call in a spot like this, and they have this hand, and they feel really good, but they also call in a spot like this, and look where I have the 6s and I have just the nuts, and they feel really bad. And in general, like as you can see overall, I'm printing in this line, so you have to just be aware that sometimes you are going to get called in these types of spots, and that can be okay as long as you learn how to play your value in the same way. So like here's kind of the other, like a similar situation where 3-bet from this is a good regular, so flop, I decide to split, I decide to check my hand, no problem. Turn, this is going to make a pretty good deceptive check, I think, because he's very likely to reopen the action anytime he has queen 10, king 10, king queen. He could bluff with ace 10, he could bluff with ace 5 suited. When he has 8s or 10s, I could always get my 1 street on the river, and there's nothing stopping me from, let's say it goes check, check, and the river is a deuce. There's nothing stopping me from building an all-in range and just say that I've trapped the whole way, and I can add bluffs and have this hand. So I'm not really missing value. So I check. And river, this is a very important spot to go for the check, not the bet, because here both of our ranges have a bunch of ace X in them. And in this spot, if I bet, yes, he's going to always call me with an ace. But if I check, I allow him to value bet the ace that he would call me with anyway. And then I also allow him to bluff with a small pocket pair, like 4-5, 3s, 5s, 6s, whatever. And then most importantly, I allow him to hero me once he has bet, if he has ace king, ace queen, ace 10, anything like that. So really good to play your range this way. A bluff for this situation would be a hand like queen jack, blocking ace queen and blocking ace jack. Queen 9 as well, blocking ace 9 would be good. So we go for it, and he calls. So it's really, really important when you're going for river check raise bluffs, or not bluffs, when you're going for river check raises, it's really important that your range isn't skewed to one side or the other, too weak or too strong. Like, I just mean in general. Against each specific player, you should have it skewed one way or the other. But if you're like only river check raise bluffing, or that's like the majority, or you're like only river check raising for value, you're missing out on the EV and the other line for sure, like with the other part of your range for sure. They both have their place. Okay, raise 3-bet call, check. Turn, I think I want to check this hand. Don't want to bet every pair. He's still going to have 7s, 8s, 9s, 10s. This is my like worst pair here because the other ones would be a set. So we check. River, a very high frequency river check for my range, and definitely want to check pocket sixes. Here's a perfect example of a distinction I would make between a weak reg, like a weak tight reg, and a fish, like a weak tight fish, versus like normal reg. The distinction would be if I had a bluff, let's say I had here pocket sevens, and I wanted to bluff the weak tight reg, I would just open shove. I would just shove for whatever this is, 4 and a bit times pot. I would shove because I would assume that they would overfold the ace-x part of their range, which is going to be a lot of it. But because I think this player is more splashy than that, I think that if I check, he's going to bet with some of his bluffs that he just completely gave up and delayed, like 7-8, 10-9, some queen 10 of spades, things like that. And he's going to bet his ace-x, and he's going to call them at least sometimes. So check, bet, we go for the shove, he calls. Great. But it's important to have that distinction of understanding here, like if I was against a very weak type player, open shove myself would be a much better strategy. But you have to be careful with that, because if you're wrong about the type of player there are and they're just calling every ace, then you're going to get smashed. So as a general rule, river check raises are always going to be high risk, high reward. Okay, what is this? Squeeze. I split on almost every board, so with one of my weakest kings, I check. Turn, same idea. Could bet here, but it's fine. Check, so river, we're going to check. Here, this is like a really nice check raise bluff. So the check raise, what happens here, when I shove all in, I beat all of his bluffs, like pocket 8s, pocket 7s, without a heart, like all those hands. And then when I go all in, I get him to fold pocket 8s, pocket 10s, pocket jacks, pocket 7s with a heart sometimes. And I'm representing the king of flush, the king high flush or better, which I will have here. So we go for it. He calls, 10s with a heart. And again, seeing this, I take a note of the player. I take a note saying is not folding his, is not believing my river check raise. His call is kind of like whatever. Like he's not going to have that many better hands in this situation, but most players aren't ever finding a bluff in this spot. They're like always sitting here with like ace queen offsuit with the ace of hearts. So I just take a note and I adjust the range. If he had folded, then which like the majority of players will, then I'd be very happy. So I'm not going to say it was a mistake with the information I had. But if I got called by a player with a weak hand in that situation and I just refused to adjust my range and I kept trying to river check raise bluff him with too weak of a range, then I'm making a clear mistake. What is this? Limp call. Okay, so I think he's 3-betting a lot in the big blind would be why I would do this. Small sizing turn seems good. Call. Here, really good spot to check, because if I'm limping this hand blind on blind, it means he's very aggressive. And so if he's very aggressive, that means that he's the type of guy who's going to try to get me off of a chop here with his entire range. So definitely a good spot to check. And then we want max value because I think he's aggressive and more loose. If he was a tight, weak player, I would check raise to 35 blinds to get called. Okay, raise call, check, 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 clear call. And we go for check raise. I think this is quite reasonable. He's going to have a lot of one pair of aces. We block queen 10, and he's not going to have ace king, but like our king's a good card just because it unblocks his bluffing range. And yeah, this is just a nice combo to choose where I beat all of his bluffs, which will bet fold, and then he's going to have some ace 10, ace 9, ace 8, ace 7 that would bet fold. And here you can see I don't choose like a huge sizing because I don't think that it's. I think that he has ace 4 and ace jack to this line at least some percentage of the time, which is just going to snap call me. So my sizing kind of indicates how capped their range is. The more intact their range is going to be, the smaller I'm willing to go. I remember this one. This one was a pretty dirty one. So raise call against reg, check, check, check. Turn, I go for pot, no problem. I'm just saying I'm polarized to king 8 or better. He goes for a raise. You could argue that this is just a fold now against maybe even everyone. I don't think, like, I decided to call against this player because I thought that he might have enough bluffs, and I also have the potential club coming in on the river with a ace blocker to do something. But this is going to be a fold against a lot of players. I'll just say that, like almost everybody. But he was an aggressive player, so I thought it's not implausible for him to have a draw, like a combo draw, flush, backdoor flush draw. Like he checks back a hand like Jack 7 of clubs, raises the turn, things like that. 5, 6 of clubs, so call. River, we check. Hopefully he checks. And here we have a situation where I'm playing against a player that I think is playing well. So here I'm only going to bluff my absolute nut combos, and my nut combos of bluff. This is my single best combo, I think, to bluff, because I block pocket nines, which I don't think he has often at all, but it's just, if he does have it, it's his auto call. And I also block the nut flush. So here I think his value betting range is probably, when he chooses this sizing, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it was a flush. If it was like only a flush when he chooses this sizing. Maybe a straight, maybe a hand like queen 10 offsuit with the queen of clubs. But if he had bet like 20 blinds, I think he definitely has a 4 or better. But versus this size, it's possible that he has only a flush or better. Maybe he could bet if he has 4 with like a club blocker. So like, because I think he min raised the button. So some guys min raise the button in these Zoom games with like any 2. So if he had a hand like queen 4 offsuit, queen of clubs, king 4 offsuit, king of clubs, he can probably bet this size. Anyway, I have the absolute nut combo to shove, block his nut flushes, block the pocket nines. A nice way for you to ask yourself if your combo is good to bluff is you reverse the spot. So imagine you're the big blind and give him his range in this situation. So let's say he has any flush here. Let's say he has here 5, 6 of clubs. Let's say he has here king 4 offsuit with the king of clubs. This is a very dirty spot that almost everyone is just going to pure fold those hands. So really nice spot for a bluff. This one I'm just disrespecting a weak tight reg. It's good to show you guys though. It's something that you guys should do a lot. So check call flop after calling 3-bet. Turn, I give him some bullshit, 10% pot here. This is not a thing, and it's not something I would do against a good player, but I'm challenging him to find enough bluff raises and to respond appropriately, and I don't think he will. So, for example, if I check, I think he's gonna just barrel with like ace eight of spades or ace nine of whatever, ace jack offsuit. But against this, I think that he's going to freeze more and just call, and it caps him as well. So we call, or so he calls. River, I have a clear check. He bets, and here I just give him a disrespectful all in. Just the idea of he's gonna raise with two pair or better on the turn every time, and he's not creative enough to think about what hands would I 10% turn into check shove on the river. And this is kind of where you really want to be having the player types in different categories, where I would not try this ever on a player who is not a folder. And I would try this on four tabling leaderboard reg who is winning at -2 BBs, and he's just winning with rake back, and he's playing for 10 hours a day. This type of play is going to be very effective against them. Get the fold. It's good. Again, kind of using the same principles of what types of hand classes I'm using. If it goes check check on the river, I have plenty of EV. If he bets, I can get him to bet fold king queen, ace king, aces. So a lot of combos for me to win more. Here I messed up my sizing. So raise, 3-bet call. Flop, I decide to split and decide to check this time. Aces with the diamond and club, no problem. Check, check. Turn, very important, you keep checking. If I check the flop here in these formations, I'm saying I have ace high. So when I have these aces, I want to continue with that story, because he's going to value bet at some point with a pair. He's also going to bluff. And if he decides to never bluff, my ace king and ace queen here are very happy. And even if he decides to never bluff, or like not bluff often, when he has a hand here like queen jack of hearts or jack 10 of clubs, he's drawing dead, and some percentage of the time he's going to river top pair, and I'm going to like force him to lose more money, kind of. Check, check. River, same thing. I'm still representing ace high. He bets. I didn't have the read at the time, but this guy's not a folder. I went for a small rate. I mean, it's not super small, but I went for 3x here. Should have went for bigger, not just because of like I think he called with ace king, which is whatever. Like he should not ever call here, because no one's ever bluffing like this in this situation. Like they would just bluff themselves as the out of position player at some point. He has a really good hand to call blocking aces, is what I'm saying I have mainly, but no one ever bluffs like this. So after I see this size up in the future, here's kind of another concept. There are spots in the game tree where you should have 0 check raise bluffs. So some spots in the game tree where you should have no check raise bluffs is, let's say I was playing against a player who I thought was a station or calling me down a lot, and I did wind up to the river with ace queen here. Just a spot that I think that players are going to bet call very often and not give you credit. So essentially just any spot where you're representing an extremely narrow range and you're playing against players who are not folders, having 0% check raise bluffs and just check raising value is an excellent strategy. This one was sad. I got lazy on my sizing. Split flop, check, check, no problem. Turn, decide to check. I have many worse hands to bluff. 5-4, 5-6, 10-9, jack 10, ace jack, ace 10. River, on this card, I think I have enough showdown. I have better hands to bluff. Check. He bets. Here, I think his range here is extremely queen X heavy. I don't mind the raise, but I should have went bigger. I probably should have went to like 50, just at least 3x. He bet called me with queen 10. I think this is a pretty good spot for you guys, just not being known, because I think that this is a spot that gets heavily overfolded. Like if you're this player and you face this line of check, 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 check. He bets large, and we check raise. This is like, at least in my opinion, not a situation where players are bet calling with like any queen, because it's like, how the hell is out of position bluffing here? So I didn't bluff on any street, and then I raised. So in the past, I would get a ton of credit in a spot like this, but yeah, he calls with the queen. Is what it is. I would adjust the range. This one doesn't look interesting. I mean, I remember the hand, so third ISO, third pot, clear check. This is nothing. Just check call, river, check shove value. Not interesting. Actually, I guess there is interesting. Just the sizing on the river. So I ISO 5x. He calls flop. Would split. This hand really wants to bet. A lot of protection. Can get value. Backdoor everything. Sure. Turn. We have a clear check. Betting king, jack, or better. Okay, he bets large. We have a clear call. The interesting thing is the sizing on the river, I guess. Like here, when he chooses this sizing, let's say that we were both, let's say he had 150 behind and I also had 150. Really important that against the weak players that you go for all of it, because you're not going to get any, like, you're not looking to get called when he has a king. You're just trying to target when he has the 4. So just really important for your win rate to be able to identify spots where your opponents are strong versus when they're weak. Here versus regular flop, check, check. Call a 3-bet in the cutoff versus buttons, flop, check, check. Turn, really important to check. You definitely don't want to bet all of your aces. One of my weakest aces is going to check. And river, same idea. Really good spot to check with your weakest ace. Why? He's going to bet all of his no equity give ups that he wants to. Like if he has a hand like Jack 10 of hearts, Queen Jack of diamonds, he'll always bluff the river. And B, almost all of the hands that he is going to call your river bet with, he is going to reopen himself, and you would have a chance to get a check raise in. So here he's going to be very heavily weighted towards jacks, queens, kings, maybe some 6-5, 6-7 hands. So 6-5 and 6-7 will obviously check, but there's more of the other hands and bluffs, so we go for check. He bets, and here just kind of choosing a size that I think will get called from the range that I think I'm up against. This is a perfect type of spot where I think that rather than you trying to play a balanced range, you should play an imbalanced range against the opponent that you think you're up against. So, for example, against this guy who's a non-folder and non-believer of me, only have value in this line, and against a weak tight regular like the guy that I did the Queen 10 of hearts 10% turn donk into river check raise bluff, against him I should only have bluffs in this line, and if I have value here like this hand, I should just 1.5x river overbet for value myself, because he would bet fold too often. Okay. Limp in the small blind means that he's 3-betting me a shitload, so limp call, sure. Flop bet, we have a clear call, way too strong to check raise bluff, and since I'm limping, it means that he's not a folder, so definitely don't want to find the bluff here. Turn versus overbet, really nice calling combo. I dominate some of his king 10, king jack hands, so when he rivers the king and he value bets, I actually get the value bet myself. The deuce, nice, blocking his, because he ISO'd when I limped in the small blind, so he's going to have some bluffs here like 4 deuce offsuit, 9 deuce offsuit, queen deuce offsuit, and obviously blocking deuces, and it's an unblocker. So in this type of spot, I'm going to fold hands like pocket 3s, pocket 6s, pocket 7s, fold all those hands. And I really like calling a hand like king 2. I would also fold a hand like, if I had something like 4-5 suited, or a hand like 10-4 suited, like blocking some of his draws, like more of his draws, I would fold. So we call. And river, he goes large. And here's a really nice play against regulars where when you're playing against a regular and you know he's good enough to have all ins in different situations, like here, a good regular is 100% going to have an all in range on this river, where the range is going to be, depending on who you're playing against, you could go as thin as Queen Jack plus because I've limped in the small blind. I don't think that most players would go Queen Jack plus, but they'd for sure have some range. They would definitely they have two pair plus for all in. And so this is a spot where, because I know that this player has all in sizes in this situation, I know that he's not at the nutted part of his range. So I decide to go for the shove. And this is like a extremely profitable proposition for me in the sense of I'm risking 80 to win 70, so it does not have to work often. Um, this is only good against the guys who you know are good enough to have a shove on the river. If you know that that's the player type you're up against, it's extremely good. I don't even think I was showing my face for a while. I don't know. Yeah, if you know that that's the player that you're up against, then it's extremely effective because what that means is that when he chooses the sizing, he's taking out of his range all two pairs or better. So he never has fours, deuces, queen. Maybe he probably has pocket queens, but that might not turn over bet. Um, he's not going to have 6-3 ever, ace 3 because that just shoves, and so you can get him to bet fold. Queen 10, queen jack, king queen, ace queen, pocket kings, pocket aces, at least sometimes. So really effective play if you can identify it. And I don't want to get you guys to make a bunch of suicide bluffs where you're like min raising all in versus versus bet over bet large bet. But I do want to show you guys that if you can find the right situations for it, they're quite juicy. Okay, so get the fold. Raise, disrespect 3-bet, call, split the flop. I'm going to check. Turn, split. My hand doesn't need to bluff. I've got worse hands. Check, check. River, same idea. I beat enough ace highs. I've got worse hands. Check. He goes for bet. I think here he has a lot of pocket queens, maybe pocket jacks with a heart. Gonna have maybe some king X. I think that this is a reasonable hand to raise. So I go for the small raise. So here, when I go for the small raise, I'm saying I'm only targeting a small percentage of his range. So this means that I'm only targeting pocket queens and pocket jacks with a heart, which would be the betting range. I mean, I would assume he might bet even without a heart with this line with like pocket queens. He should just bet any queens. So I'm only trying to get him to fold the small raise. I'm risking 33 to win 33. This does not need to work often. And if he only folds queens and jacks and he calls everything else that's better, then this is printing. Because I would still beat all of his bluffs as well. Like some of the ace jack or ace queen if he has ace 5 of spades type hands. Calls and he's like super trapping with eights. I don't recommend this. He should have other hands to protect that range. His hand should be all in by the river. Okay, but call. Something to note here that I think a mistake that you guys make is that you guys pure call a hand like this on the flop against half pot. You shouldn't. You should pure call with a club, and without a club, if you want to RNG, you can RNG and call it like half the time. If you want to do it based off of your opponent, then you could do that either. So like the weaker your opponent is and the tighter he is, the more I would call because I'll be able to get him to fold. Like when a club comes in and it goes check check and I just 2x pot over bet the river, he just pure folds, things like that. But the main thing is I see that a lot of regs here, like even guys playing like 501k, they don't know that these type of hands are just not printing like pure calls. Anyway, so it's fine. Actually, let me see here. With the 2 overs, half pot. This one's very nuanced, and it actually might be. After all that, I think that this probably actually is a pure call with the 10-9 here. If he sized it up a little bit, like if he made it like 3.5, for sure not pure call. So it's super super close against this actual half pot. But with the two overs and the backdoor 7 also giving you open ender for half pot, probably has to be a pure defend. Uh, okay, so we call. Turn check. River, perfect type of hand to go for river check raise. Why? Beat, like have reasonable showdown, can beat a bunch of his bluffs, can beat an 8x at the flop, can beat pocket 9s at the flop. So we go for check. He goes small. Here, I really like going large. Most players are going to pure bet the turn with a king of clubs and ace of clubs. He ended up getting me, sort of. Like it's it's so like he definitely got me in the sense of I mean I would have check raised in reality against almost any size that he bet. I mean not any size, but if he had bet bigger, I would have still check raised because I think that he's going to barrel with the ace and king of clubs very often. So this is a really really nice hand to check raise here. But like he loses the credit that he got for trap it for like playing his hand the way he does by he just calls with the nuts here, which is kind of embarrassing because I would against this sizing, depending on my perception of the player, I would for sure widen my value range and I would find the king of clubs to this size. Um, would I call versus 3-bet? Potentially. I don't like folding. But the point is that don't ever do this if you're him. Like choosing the sizing can make some sense, especially if your opponent's very aggressive and attacks the size. But he should always min click the river to either allow me to call or once in every blue moon re-raise and he calls off. But calling here is tragic. But very good combo to check raise bluff here. This one was dog shit on my end. Raise. I got a small 3-bet by this player. I'm pretty sure is cheating at the GG 200 games in the sense of, and I think there's a lot of players like this where they 4-table like 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, and their play style is like very different day to day. So I'm sure that there's like multiple people playing on the account, changing, like taking shifts. Like some days he's like a good reg, some days he's like a short stacking fish. So anyway, call because of the sizing, just clear call. Flop check. So against one of his player profiles, like against one of the account users, he like checks back very often with showdowns. Like he would check with all of his aces, so my hand would very happily call. So we call just thinking he has a more polarized range. Check, check, turn, river. We clearly check, never bet. He goes for bet, and you definitely want some check raise bluffs in this spot, that's for sure. In terms of combos, you definitely don't want a diamond because you want him to bet fold flush draw diamonds, which he could have, and you want him to like flushes of diamonds, I'm saying, and having the king of hearts seems reasonable because I like remember I had to have checked the river, so I'm gonna have some showdown, and yeah, probably I want to have here like a hand like king queen of clubs. It's probably my best check raise bluff, like unblocking the hands he's going to reopen, bluff the river, and can get him to fold some of the flushes. You definitely want to go small here. You're just saying you have an ace and you don't want to go huge because he's going to have a bunch of aces. Also, if he has a hand like pocket 9s to pocket kings, you still put pressure on the range. So I just went for min. I think that this was bad because of like which version of him I was playing against in this time. But yeah, I'm not going to talk about that too much. It doesn't really matter. But just to kind of show you guys the check raising combos and why. Yeah, so the king high, have the showdown. Not going to get any better hands to fold if I bluff myself. Can get some better hands to bet fold. Definitely beat all of his. He's going to have a lot of bluffs here, just like 8-9 of spades, queen 4 of hearts, just see betting flop, desperation bluffing, etc. Yeah. Okay, raise call, split the flop, decide to check. He bets small. We go for check raise. Really good hand to check raise bluff when they bet small. That means he's betting a depolarized range, so he's gonna have a bunch of pocket pairs like 3s to 8s that really hate this. He calls turn. I think playing small sizing here is a really good play. I know I did go small sizing here. I think it's a really good play because I think I'm still interested in betting ace 9, 10s, jacks, queens for a small sizing and building a range around that. I definitely would also have a large sizing. So you want to have two sizes here. Like if I had pocket sixes, if I had pocket aces, if I had a combo draw, I could go for the large sizing. But I definitely want a small sizing as well. And having this shitty draw in air quotes, I think makes sense for the small sizing. Where if he just has here a hand like pocket sevens with a spade, if he has a hand like 10-8 of diamonds, if he has a hand like 6-7 of hearts, it just puts him in a world of pain. And I would for sure have pocket kings to this line. I would have king X of spades to this line, so the range will be reasonably balanced. He calls. River, I think I have a clear check. I have way too much showdown to bluff. He bets, and this one I think you guys would find if you get here. Obviously, just blocker bluffing with the nut flush. Super hard for me to have a bluff here. And this is the type of spot where really important that when you think about the types of hands that they're value betting, it's not just the type of hands they're value betting, but also the hands that you're representing. Really important that your sizing represents that. So, for example, here I'm saying that I have the nut flush, so I want to go all in, and I would want to go all in when I have the nut flush. And it's really important because since his bet call flop, call turn, bet large river range will have plenty of flushes in them. Like he will have 5-4 spades, 7-8 spades, 10-8 spades. The only chance I have of getting them to fold is by choosing all in. So that's just what your range wants to do. And you just let him make a mistake in either direction. Either he folds all of his non-nut flushes and your flushes get no value, but your bluffs go through, or he doesn't fold any of your flushes. This bluff torches, but your nut flushes make a lot of money, and then you would slowly remove some of your bluffs because if he's not folding any flush, it doesn't make sense. But you start off bluffing reasonably because most players will fold if they're a reg. Okay. This one I don't think is anything. I think it's very standard. Flop check. I think you guys know this, but at this stack depth, you really don't want to 3-bet 10-9 suited. It hates getting shoved on, so call 3x. Flop check, turn, clear check, clear call pot. River, when he pots turn, he's polar, so clear check river. He pots, shove. He's got like queens, aces, king jack, queen 10. If he has a better flush, whatever. That one's not interesting. Here, this is a disrespect bluff gone wrong. So raise call, large sizing, clear call, turn. I give him the. I want to say also, this is not the same guy, the disrespect bluff. So the disrespect bluff is very effective, but it has to be on the right player. And sometimes you do it against the wrong player and you get slapped on the wrist and then you learn. So turn, I donk, very good card for my range, no problem. River, I check, don't think that betting makes sense. He goes for overbet, and I think that his range is super capped here, where I think that he's very likely to raise any 2-pair plus. I mean, he only has sets, but basically a set plus on the turn. And even pocket queens, I thought would probably raise the turn fairly often. The 3 just blocking pocket 3s is not that relevant. It's kind of whatever. It's more just I'm attacking the spot thinking that I'm going to get overfold, and I'm attacking the large sizing. And a lot of players are going to overfold when you attack their over bets because it's like you have to be crazy to bluff here. I do think that this is an effective play against the right players, but against the wrong players, it's not. And so here I chose the wrong player, or I had been bluffing him too much already, and he decided to call, and I lose. Also, very important with river check raises to do your best to keep track of the metagame. So, like, when I show that hand down, when that hand happens, right? I need to know, this is very important. I need to know that this hand has happened and that he's seen this hand because I know that I have just effectively reduced my fold equity against this player in a ton of spots. And so by extension, I already need to shift my range to wider and thinner value and bluff less. Like I would not take this type of blocker bluff play against this player ever again in this situation. Not representing a lot because he's not like he's seen me bluff here. And it's going to be too easy for him to like I know that he's noted this in some way. It's like crazy player or put me on some color, right? That's like crazy aggressive. So you really need to know what your image is. Okay, raise call, flop, clear check raise. Call, turn, I decide to go for a block bet, which I think is a fine strategy. I'm going to want to be block betting here with like 6s through 9s, and having 5s is a completely fine hand to balance the range. He's going to raise a 10 anyway. So we get called. River, I decide to check, representing pocket 6s, 7s, 8s to balance the range. He's always going to bet, I would say, pocket 8s or better, and he might bluff. Kind of weird for him to bluff here. If he was a good player, he would bluff with some king, queen, ace, king, ace, queen for like a pot sizing representing a jack or better. And I think this guy doesn't give me credit, so we wanted max value. He goes 10, so we check raise large for value, unblocking his betting range. Calls. And he calls like a weak hand, aces. This one, not interesting. This is just, I have the nuts. I'm not going to explain. Actually, I guess I'll talk a little bit on it because you guys know that I've been making leading ranges. Yes, I make leading ranges against everyone, and against a player who doesn't give leads credit, it's really nice to put strong hands in the leading range. So, donk small with a very strong hand, clear call, turn, bets, clear call. It's just not It's just not an interesting hand from like a river check raise perspective. I have the nuts and I'm all in, but yeah, since we're just focusing on river check raises today, I'm just going to talk about that. We can do leads in full detail another time. Okay, raise call, flop lead, very good board for me. It's good. Turn, I think I mainly want to just keep betting for block. I do. I get value from a bunch of his pairs. Don't want to let him just check back with like ace-5 or with like ace-queen with one spade. He goes for raise, and now I'm bluff catching against a flush, so I have a call. River, my range doesn't make sense to lead, so I check. And we're all in for value. Would I have a bluff here? If you did have a bluff here, you want to use 6-7 suited. This would be one of those spots where this would be one of those spots where I think I would have 0 bluffs. I don't think that this is a spot where I would feel confident enough to, with my image, have a player bet fold enough flushes. So I would have no bluffs here. But if you did, it'd be 6-7 suited. Blocking the houses. Okay, call 1/3 with a gut shot three-way. This is a fish call by me. The only reason why this would be a decent call, and I kind of remember this happening, is because on GG you can have the auto fold on. So I think this player had like already folded even though he's in the hand. So if it's heads up, then this is fine to call 1/3. Check, check. Again, when you have this type of straight, super important you go for the river check raise. He's going to reopen a lot of hands that would call your bet anyway, and you let him bluff. So by extension, if I had a hand like Queen 10, I would just want to bet myself for value. So bet, and what do we go for here? Go for a large sizing. Yeah, I think it's good. Against a whale, I think that the best sizing here would actually be all in. Because, well, maybe not all in. It really depends. It depends how wide they are. Like, what I was thinking of, there are some players where they're, like, very aggressive and they, like, check the turn with a king very often, but they, like, bluff like crazy. Against them, choosing a very large sizing river check raise would be good. No matter who you're up against, choosing large sizing with this hand is always going to be the play. It's just about you trying to guesstimate how weak and wide the player is and how loose they are to see how much you can get out of them. This one, don't think is interesting. I have the nuts. So I go for a check call, which is interesting. I think, so this has to be aggressive regular for me to check call this hand, thinking that he's actually like capable of betting the flop with some weak hands for the large sizing. Turn, clear call, river, clear shove. No, I'm not going to talk about that one. Okay, raise call, bet flop call, check raise when you have a heart. Turn, decide to check, no problem. River, perfect type of hand to check raise. You block his king queen, you block his ace 10 and 10-9. He'll bet fold hands like king X, so king deuce suited, king 3, king 4, king 5, king 6, king 7, king 8, king 9. Sizing, I'm representing king queen or better, so I think just like 4x is good. I go 5x, sure. Good play. Okay, raise call. I like betting here because he's a fish, and this guy might be a fish as well. They're not going to punish me for betting with this type of hand. It really wants the protection. Okay, so we see bet, turn, I have a clear check. My hand's not 3 streets. We have a call. River. River is interesting where I lose to all of his flushes. I have the nut low flush. And I don't think that he's value betting with 6s, 7s. So the bottom of his value bet range here is probably an 8. So I do think I should raise, but I think I should raise small and raise fold. So I go to 42. This is only targeting an 8. I think this is fine. And then I have to raise fold. Okay, raise call. Check call. This is a really nice spot to turn check raise bluff with this hand against weak type players, and you just check raise it to like 25 blinds and they just fold everything. Really nice to use a jack here because you block the check back pocket jacks and king jack. Much better to use a jack here than a 6 or a 4. But I do the same kind of concept idea where still using my blocker on the river, his betting range is going to be some bluffs and then a bunch of one pair king X. And I still use my jack blocker, blocking the check back jacks, pocket jacks, and king jack, and line that very few players find bluffs. And he's super capped here because he never has 5-7, and I also have jack 8 that he never has. He probably doesn't have many, if any, king 8s because king 8 suited is going to bet the flop here almost always. So he's very capped here to a 1 pair, and just put the pressure on with a blocker. Very good play against basically everyone. So you can see like lots of bluffs, lots of bluffs. The river check raising range is also lots of value. Like it's you should have both in your game. You should definitely have both. Okay, so 3-bet split board for me. I'm gonna bet this hand always. We bet. Turn, I think I have a pretty clear check. My hand's not a 3-street hand. I want to play for one more bet on the river if he checks back against his smaller pairs. And yeah. So I check. Checks back. River. My hand's now too weak to value bet. So we check. He bets. And we have the perfect type of hand to shove. We have the best hand here sometimes, but sometimes he is for sure going to be value betting pocket fours through pocket queens with one club. And it's a spot that a lot of players have zero bluffs because the in position player is going to expect the out of position player to just bluff themselves on the river. And you should legitimately have value here. For example, if I had here a hand like ace-jack offsuit with the ace of clubs, I could play the hand the same way. I could also have ace-8 of clubs played the same way, bet the flop, check the turn, check the river to go for check raise. So you definitely should have some value here, but going to be a really nice spot as a bluff using a combo like this. And yeah, like trying to show you guys they're all different hands, and there's all like little nuances in each hand for sure. But I'm also trying to show you guys the consistent patterns and heuristics that keep showing themselves in kind of different ways. So here was like another spot where similar type of hand class, right? Have the showdown, win versus check. When he bets, there's a subsection of hands that I can get him to fold versus raise. It's a spot that very few players have a check raising range as a bluff because they don't know how to construct it. So very good spot to attack. This looks like I'm punting. Let's see. Check call flop. Check check. What do I want to bluff here? So I definitely don't want a 10 or a jack or a queen because I think that his value to bet fold in this situation will be a 10 jacks, queens, kings, and aces. So to bluff here, or he'll have a hand like king 10, something like, let's say he has like king 10 of clubs. He c-bets flop, turn he decides to check because he has a gut shot, doesn't want to get check raised, and I'm an aggressive player, so he just checks. I check river, he value bets. Fives. Trying to think what my best bluff. Probably my best bluffing combo here is going to be something like ace-6 suited. Would probably be my best bluffing combo. Ace-6, I would say. That's not going to interact with his bluffing range. Don't love this one. I also don't think he has like any pocket sevens. Actually, no, that's not true. He would. He would have pocket sevens here pure because he bet the flop, checks the turn. Don't love this one. Kind of happy I got called there. I deserve that. Which actually I think is a lesson in itself of if you're going to experiment with check raise bluffing, you're going to do a stupid one every now and then, and you have to learn from it. And so the way you would learn from it is you look at it like this, and I look at my hand, and I say that my hand doesn't really have the properties to be doing this. And then also, if I looked at this spot, I would assume that most players are not good enough to value bet 10, just a naked 10x on the river for that size, which is what I would mainly be targeting to bet fold. So I would say mistake hand by me. Raise call, check, check turn, seems good. I have a hand that's, when he checks back flop here, most players just have complete like dust, like Jack 9 of clubs, especially against me. Like if you're an aggressive player and you check raise very aggressively, a lot of players end up realizing that they just should stop c-betting their complete trash against you all the time. Some players definitely don't make that adjustment and you just crush them, but a thinking player should realize that. And so if his range is going to be so much air, then checking makes a ton of sense. Here, just a value. Check raise. It's good. This seems like just a standard value one. Flop bet, call, turn, check, check, river, clear, check. Good play by me. Good all in. Oh, where did I go? Definitely large. All in, I didn't realize. Yes, I went 107. Yeah, this is a good situation. Here, I think I should have shoved. Because this is... Actually, I take that back. I thought originally that he was a fish from his pre-flop sizing, but then seeing he's got 300 blinds and he didn't actually make it like super small. I think this is like a preset hotkey. I don't think that this is a fish. So then when he chooses large sizing flop, he could have some ace 3, some ace 8. I guess ace 8 wouldn't really be in there as much. Check, check. Gonna have a bunch of ace king, ace queen, but that is gonna barrel turn pretty aggressively. So it probably has quite a few. I mean, on the river, it's a very clear check. I'm just trying to think of my sizing if I prefer this one going all in. Not knowing anything about the player, I like my sizing of 100 where it's very large, but it's not like super greedy if he's folding. Like, because some players here are going to fold ace king, ace queen like almost always. Some players are like never. And so me not knowing which one, I choose the conservative option. And then a way that you would adjust that is if I made it 100 here and he snap calls with ace king, ace queen, I know for next time I should be going all in. So kind of like a good lesson there is you can start conservative in certain spots where you're not sure and then adjust the range depending on what you see at showdown. Like poker is a game of constant adjustments. Okay, raise call. I remember this hand. Check turn. This is against a non-folding reg fish. Check call. Once he chooses a bad sizing on the turn in my opinion, but we have a call. He's saying he has an ace. I want to keep in all the hands that are drawing dead, but I'm definitely looking to raise the river for value because I don't think he has enough better hands. Check. He goes half pot. Here, I want to raise with, I would say ace jack or better, and I would use different sizings. This hand, I think, and this is, I have him as a non-folder. So here, a really good rule. This one didn't work out for me. I remember he had 2 pair, but the concept of expanding your value range against the non-folders is really important. So I go for huge sizing. I like it. Like, I don't think. I mean, this stands whatever from him. Like, if I'm attacking here wide, then it can be good, but I don't like this sizing for his hand because he could choose that sizing with other hand classes as well. But if I'm going to be over aggressive against a small sizing, it could make a ton of sense. Yeah, I definitely like the raise though. And the important thing here is you need to be paying attention to player sizing. So after this, if I don't take a note that he can bet like half pot or smaller sizing with the, I would just say with the nuts in position against me on like when we're not deep, it would be a huge mistake for me not to note that, and because then I'm going to be attacking what I would perceive to be his weaker range incorrectly. Raise call, check, check. This is a reasonable check. He's going to bet an ace every time. I think, though, I prefer betting this one. The only way I would check this is normally just a bet myself, because an ace will call me. His pairs might call me like sevens through kings, and I don't expect him to call a check raise with a lot of those. The only exception would be if I thought that this player was just c-betting the flop with anything reasonable, and so his range was just like only dog shit on the river, then checking makes more sense. Okay, here's another kind of just disrespect check raise. So it's not even disrespect. It's a good play, but it's kind of disrespectful in the sense of, oh, you'll see. So check check. Or so we check call turn. River he bets, and here, what hands is he going to have to fold? He's going to have to fold here a7. That beat me. I'm saying a7, eights, nines, tens. Hands like jack 8, jack 9, jack 10, maybe queen jack. King jack plus was always betting. So he just has a lot of better hands that are folding, and he has all of his draws, like all of his bluffs, and it's just a good spot to be check raise bluffing in situations where your range looks like it doesn't need to bluff. Like from his perspective, if I have a hand like I have, or if I have a hand like ace-3, since the vast majority of the population is either going to call or fold those hands, raising has a lot of EV, and I don't even need to make it big. Like, if you can imagine you're him and you've bet the river with, most of you, to be honest, bet too thinly, but you should be betting this river with like ace-7 plus, maybe even king-7 plus, probably even king-7 plus. But just imagine you have like pocket 8s here, pocket 9s. Imagine you even have a jack here. Let's say you have jack 9 and you face this. It's very unlikely to be a bluff, and it's going to be 7-5, 5-3, pocket 5s very often. So just a good situation to kind of identify. Not every spot you need to go large to get them to fold, and the difference would be in a spot that the population is under bluffing. It's a spot where sometimes you can get away with going for a smaller sizing because it still has a similar fold equity. And the way you can kind of ask yourself that is you put yourself in the cutoff shoes. So, like I said, imagine you're here, you're him, and you have jack 8 or you have pocket 10s and you face this. Are you just like bet calling? You're like, oh, this is the bluff? Or you're like, oh, fuck, I have to fold. This is never a bluff. And I'm risking, I don't need to bet 40 blinds to get the same fold equity as 28. So, really profitable spot. Gonna wrap it up in like one or two more hands. They feel like I've been going for a while. So raise cutoff, fish calls, flop, gonna split, gonna probably check. I could see myself doing either way here. Just depends on my perception of the player. Check call, never raise. Turn, he caps himself. River, same idea. When he takes this line, he never has a jack. He will have 8-9 sometimes. So I would not go all in. But since he's going to also have a bunch of 10x, like queen 10, 10-9, king 10, that's mainly what I'm targeting. So great spot to go for a check raise. Picking a sizing that I think it's enough to get him to fold a 10. So it's not like I'm check raising to like 15, but not a sizing that, not like a massive sizing because he's capped. Really important, like the weaker that your opponent is in this situation, the more you can do this with like anything. Like if I got here to the river with even stronger, like I'll show you this. I'll show you in another spot because I looked through some of these hands before I started. Um, I'll show you what I mean in another spot where I want to show you guys that the strength of your hand. How do I want to say this? If your opponent is legitimately folding better hands, it doesn't matter how strong of a hand you're bluffing. So I'll show that with uh, this hand. So what I mean by that is, so I open here, fish calls, other guy calls, check, split flop, check, check turn. I have a flush on the river. My hand clearly checks. He pots it, but he never has the king of flush because that would pure bet the turn, and jack of flush is going to bet almost always. The only jack that he has of hearts is going to be if he's a whale. Like if he's a whale, he could have like queen jack offsuit with the jack of hearts. Every other jack of hearts, like if he had jack nine offsuit of hearts or something, he would bet the turn. Or if he had a hand like jack 10 offsuit of hearts, he probably bets the flop. Just kind of showing that you can even turn a flush into a bluff here if he's bet folding hands like eights and nines with a heart or something like that. Or let's say he has ace nine offsuit, nine of hearts. So there's no limit on how strong your hand. Like, just to hyperbolize the point, I guess if I had the nine of hearts here, if I had the nine of hearts here, and just hypothetically I knew he never had the king of hearts, shoving all in would be a very good play to just target the jack of hearts, even though I have the nine of hearts and I have the best hand here almost always. And so the reason why I wouldn't go all in here in this situation is because I think that in this spot I don't have to target the same range. Okay, let's see here. This is the last one we'll do because it's an important concept. The idea of changing your river sizing to accomplish what you want. So raise call can't be a player that I think is good, otherwise I wouldn't defend this. All of you are going to be this player. You're all like, that's me. So flop check, clear call, no need to raise. Turn facing 2/3. A really good hand to call. Here you're going to want to fold threes, fold fours, fold sixes, sevens, fold eights. You call hands like this instead with 5 outs against his value and unblocking all of his draws. So we call. And river, he chooses half pot. And so there's nothing wrong with playing completely exploitative sizings based off of what your hand wants. So here, if I don't think he's a great player, which has to be true for me to call 7 deuce here, then I'm looking at his sizings as face up. And so what I'm saying is on the flop, he has a lot of overs and like nothing. On the turn, he has a bunch of nothing and king X. So nothing and king X basically. So he's going to have like queen jack, jack 10, ace 4, ace 3, maybe some 7, 8, 6, 7, queen jack offsuit, etc. Okay. On the river, I think that most of his flushes, maybe all of them, I'm going to actually say, I have to say all of them for me to do this, would be betting bigger. And so I think that this range is going to be mainly air or it's king X. So I pick a custom sizing right for his range, which is just min raise, which is exactly what my hand is worth. And I allow him to call with what I think his range is going to be. And the weaker that your opponents play, the easier and more effective this is. But it's certainly something that you guys should have in your game. Like, you shouldn't be looking at the spot on the river and be like, okay, so I can only river check raise here to at least 3x or whatever. Like you should be able to, when you're specifically when you're against weaker players, there's no problem with having a river check raise range and size specifically for what you're trying to accomplish. And the better that your range analysis is, the more accurate you're going to get and the higher your win rate. All right, I think that this was a really good first episode of this. I think we got through a ton of hands with a ton of different spots while we had a ton of overlapping concepts. And yeah, have a great day, guys. See ya.